Hi, it's Colin Cowherd. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
So Bill Plaschke wrote a story today talking about how the Lakers should trade LeBron. And then there was a bunch of conversations, on ESPN about it. And obviously, I'll set it up like this. There was an old Family Guy bit where Peter Griffin wins an award. And the guy goes to him and he goes like, hey, you can have this boat or you can have this box. And Peter looks at the box and he's like, oh, it's a mystery box. Like, what's in it? And he goes like, it could even be a boat. And then he takes the box and it ends up being something stupid. That's kind of how I feel about the idea of trading LeBron or trading Anthony Davis or trading stars in hopes of what a future draft pick could be. Like, you're just hoping that 2027 first could be someone like LeBron. You're just hoping that 2029 first could be someone like Anthony Davis. You currently have LeBron. You currently have Anthony Davis. You have everything you need except for a good set of role players, which, yes, I get it. You messed it up. You built incorrectly this season. You made a ton of mistakes. A bunch of people made a ton of mistakes, and it didn't work this time. But LeBron James and Anthony Davis are still under contract next season. And even if LeBron undergoes a little bit of a decline, slipping from the, first, second, third best player in the world to the seventh, eighth, ninth best player in the world, you still have a ton of top-end talent. You still have a lot more than the vast majority of the teams around the league have. So it's much more advantageous for you to try to make this work than hope that maybe you get the mystery box that has the next LeBron in it. Especially as the LA Lakers, as a free agent destination, you don't need to build organically through the draft. So the primary driving force behind this opinion, the reason why people want, even consider trading LeBron is the drama. One of the recurring themes that I've seen from people over the course of the last week is like, hey, building with LeBron sucks. He gets rid of all your assets. He brings a lot of drama. He, all this junk, and he destroys franchises. He always leaves franchises in a worse position than when he starts. And I don't think that's a fair characterization of the LeBron process. So I wanted to take a second to address that specifically. Everyone wants to point to Miami and the way that they struggled post LeBron, and the fact that they lost all their assets, and the fact that they went all in on that group and it blew up in like 4 years, and it was way shorter of a window than they thought, and they want to blame that on LeBron. Then they look at Cleveland and they go, oh, look, here we go, 4 years again, blows up again, and they're forgetting about the very specific reasons why those situations went south. LeBron went to Miami to play with someone that was one of the best players in the world, which was Dwayne Wade. He was that for 1 year. And then about halfway through that second year, he started having issues with his knee, like fluid buildup and just general soreness. He started having to load manage. He started losing that explosiveness. He was very inconsistent on a night in, night out basis in terms of how his body felt. And that was just year 2. It just got significantly worse and worse as the years went on. And by 2014, he was more or less a bench player. He might have been like the 25th to 30th best player in the league at that point. Not a bench player, but he was a traditional role player, not a superstar at that point in his career. Then you move on to Cleveland, and they were incredibly dominant in the 2017 postseason. Just beat the crap out of everybody they played until they got to that juggernaut Warriors team. And after Game 5, after they lose in the finals, Kyrie goes into a press conference and says all these nice things about how he loves being under LeBron and learning from him. And then like a month later, he demands a trade. That's Kyrie's flakiness, which is well documented. Kyrie's flakiness is what destroyed the Cavs. It wasn't LeBron cashing in assets. It wasn't LeBron's drama. It was Kyrie Irving. LeBron didn't mess up the Miami Heat. One of their core foundational pieces got hurt. And then literally they re-signed Chris Bosh after LeBron left for like $100-something million, and he got a blood clot. And he couldn't play. That's why those situations went south. It had nothing to do with LeBron. And this idea of like, oh, you lose assets. Every team, look, the Lakers are as strapped for assets as any team in the league, and they still have 2 firsts and a good young player to trade this summer. Every team is capable of retooling as long as they don't completely nuke themselves with stupid signings, right? And the Lakers have open cap looking forward, they just have, LeBron, Anthony Davis. I think they'll get off of rust this summer, but all these veteran minimums are off. They can completely redo that next year. Kendrick Nunn is an interesting situation there because if he opts in, that complicates things with the mid-level exception. But the point is like the Lakers do have flexibility. And the only reason this window feels like it's ending, the only reason this feels like the next Cavs or Heat is because Anthony Davis can't stay on the court. I pointed this out last week after he sprained his ankle. If Anthony Davis does not play another game this season, LeBron and AD will have only played together in 53 of 160 opportunities since the bubble. Is that because LeBron cashed in assets? Is that because, LeBron's high drama? Or is that because guys got hurt? It's obviously because guys got hurt. The LeBron process, I understand that it's stressful, but it comes with a reward. It comes with a championship. This isn't a relationship. You're not going home to a dramatic wife every night, okay? This is a job. At the job, you put up with anything as long as the reward is commensurate. The Lakers are willing to put up with LeBron as long as they get a shot at a championship, which is what they're getting. That is the trade-off there. It's like a really high-paying job where you're really stressed out and need to go home and have a drink after. Like that's the kind of thing we're talking about here. This is a normal dynamic that comes with the pressure and expectation of winning. And LeBron is the best winner of this era, so obviously he's going to have more pressure and expectation than the next guy in the list. But no matter what, trading LeBron solves nothing. All that does is put you in a situation where you're hoping that your mystery box in 2027 gives you another LeBron. LeBron is not the problem. Guys got hurt. And when guys get hurt, it's really difficult to win. Now, you made some mistakes outside of that, but they're fixable mistakes. Just fix them this summer and then go back with it with your 2 top 10 players and try to win a championship next year. This is a solvable situation. There's a couple of similarities between where the Nets are right now and where the Lakers are right now, in the sense that they're heading into a tough part of their schedule. Like the Nets are playing the Bucks next, then they play Toronto twice, then they play the Heat, then they play the Celtics, then they play the Hornets, and they play the Sixers. That's tough. Like it's going to be hard even with Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons to get out of the play-in game in that case. The Lakers are also heading into an extremely tough stretch of their schedule. I believe the vast majority of their games are against over 500 teams on the road for the rest of the season. That's tough, right? There's some similarities there. Both teams have had some self-inflicted damage, right? Like the Lakers played some of their worst players to start the season instead of prioritizing better players. They were misaligned in a lot of ways, playing away from their strengths. And then the Nets have done a lot of the same. And then straight up personnel. Kyrie Irving not getting the vaccine, that's self-sabotage. James Harden getting a wandering eye for yet another season and looking in other directions and kind of not tanking, but not playing his best basketball. That's also self-sabotage. But there's a very key difference between the situation the Nets are facing and the situation the Lakers are facing. The Nets actually have enough talent from the top to the bottom of their roster to make a run and to potentially win the title. The Lakers do not. I'm looking at the Lakers roster. I'm getting LeBron. I'm getting Anthony Davis. Russell Westbrook is, all the things that I've been saying about him. Malik Monk showed a lot of potential, but, he's not a great defensive player and he's inconsistent because he's young. And then a lot of role players, right? A lot of guys that can maybe do a job, but then there's older guys in there that may not even be NBA players anymore. When I look at the Nets, I'm getting Kevin Durant and I'm getting Kyrie Irving back for home games. We had a press conference today from the mayor of New York saying that that's something they're working towards on their end. So guess what? You're going to see Kyrie Irving, as long as he's healthy, in all of the important home games the rest of the season. And then I have Ben Simmons, who's way better than the third best player on the Lakers and a perfect shoe-in fit with that team. It's not like Russ. It's not like this obvious, basketball, collision course where it's like he needs the ball in his hands all the time. He's not a good off-ball player. But meanwhile, LeBron needs to have the ball in his hands. He's the third best player on the team, so he needs to do role player stuff, but he's bad at role player stuff. Ben Simmons is great at role player stuff. He's a great perimeter defender. He's a great backline defender. He's a great rebounder. He can sit in the dunker spot unless it's Game 7 against the Hawks. He can do a lot of different things to fill roles on that team, which means he's a more natural fit. Now, I understand that there's a time crunch here, right? Like we're looking at like a month and a half until we really get into the playoffs. So it doesn't seem like there's enough time to build cohesion there. But I'm never worried about that as long as there's something they can fall back on, whether that's a team identity, like the team's a great defensive team. And, everyone else on the team is playing defense a certain way, and you can kind of slide back into that when guys get healthy. Or if there's some, continuity, like same coach, same system, same everything, we can lean back on that. Basketball fit is another big part of it. Like, if LeBron and Anthony Davis are such a natural basketball fit that when they got back on the court together last year after not playing with each other for a long time, it was seamless. There's not a whole lot of continuity building that needs to be done as long as there's a natural fit that you can fall back on. And Brooklyn absolutely has that. Incorporating Ben Simmons is going to be the easiest thing in the entire world because he's going to be the only non-shooter in their lineup. It's not going to be like Russell Westbrook alongside DeAndre Jordan, alongside Anthony Davis, who hasn't been able to make a jump shot since the bubble. It's not that kind of dynamic. He's going to be alongside Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and Seth Curry. He's going to be alongside a ton of shooting where his spacing concerns aren't going to be that much of an issue. Last year, the Lakers' predicament was significantly worse than what the Nets were dealing with. I think LeBron came back with 4 games left, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong about that. But it was right around, it was a small handful of games that LeBron played. And then he walked right into a playoff series against the Phoenix Suns, and the Lakers looked like the Lakers. Maybe they didn't shoot as well as they did in the bubble, and that's probably why things were a little uglier in the early part of that series, but they looked like the Lakers. They were defending like crazy. They were physically imposing. They were going through Phoenix to the basket. Even when they weren't making shots, they were getting a boatload of offensive rebounds and putting the ball back in the basket. On the other end of the floor, they were wearing down Phoenix with their size and athleticism. It didn't take long for them to get back to what they were. And I don't think the Nets are going to have that problem either. Now, with the strength of schedule and with the fact that Ben Simmons and Kevin Durant are still probably a week or so away from coming back, if not longer, then yeah, they're probably going to be in the play-in. But like we saw with the Lakers, you can still do it from there. They were up 2-1 on Phoenix. Had they won that series, they would have taken the 2 spot in the bracket. So they effectively become the 2 seed at that point. That's where Brooklyn's going to be. One of these top seeds in the East, which who knows who it's going to be because they're all right next to each other in terms of games back from each other. But one of those top 2 seeds is going to have to face Brooklyn. And Brooklyn's going to have Kevin Durant. They're going to have Ben Simmons. They're going to have Kyrie Irving. They're going to have Seth Curry. Seth Curry's a good player, good role player. They're going to have Patty Mills. That's a good role player. They have a rim-running big in Nick Claxton that's better than any of the centers on the Lakers. There's a lot of talent on this team. They're just going to have a tougher path than they would have had if they were healthy the rest of the season.